In just 8 days, the eyes of the NFL world descend on Green Bay, Wisconsin, when we get a chance to kick off the 2025 NFL Draft. It happens on April 24th, and you can see it all right here on NFL Network. Until then, of course, we got you covered right here on Path to the Draft, presented by Harbor Freight. Hello, everybody. Great to be back here with you alongside our former scout, Bucky Brooks. I am Rhett Lewis. We'll hear from Mark Ross, Charles Davis, Ian Rappaport here in just a moment. We have great news for you on this Wednesday. Bucky Brooks has been burning the midnight oil, putting the finishing touches on the top 5 positional ranks. You got it all sorted? You ready to go?
Ready to go, ready to rock.
This is how these guys are going to come off the board, and we'll get into that throughout the day here. Want to start this show talking about the New York Giants sitting at number 3 in this year's draft. Tomorrow, they'll hold a private workout with Colorado quarterback Shedeur Sanders. That, according to our insiders Tom Pelissero and Ian Rappaport. More on that in a second. That part of a busy week for the Giants when it comes to the QB position is Joe Schoen, their GM, talking about their draft plans today.
With the signing of those 2 players, I think we put ourselves in a position where, I don't think that's mandatory or something that we're, our feet to the fire and we have to do. I think the 2 guys we signed have played a lot of ball. They've got a lot of skins on the wall, and I do think we've upgraded that room, compared to where it was a year ago.
Do you think at number 3, if you just sit there and you say we have top 3 players ranked, whoever is there, you feel like it's almost as much of a can't-miss player as possible in a draft?
We like our options. We like who will be there. And we like who will be there.
Have you received a lot of interest from teams looking to trade up?
We've received some calls. Yeah, we've received some calls.
All right, so a little action there as Joe Schoen talking to the media. Of course, the quarterbacks and the players he was referring to at the top, Jameis Winston coming in, Russell Wilson coming in, which means they don't necessarily feel the pressure to take that quarterback. But it sounds like, Ian, they are doing their due diligence with this QB class.
Yeah, whatever the Giants do at number 3, and make no mistake, this really is the biggest curiosity of the draft, the most interesting pick of the draft, and really where it all begins, considering we probably know, it seems, what we think is going to happen at number 1, and remains to be seen whether or not the Browns will take a quarterback at 2, but it's looking a little bit less likely. All eyes are on number 3, and if the Giants do not take a quarterback at 3, it is not going to be for lack of effort and lack of homework. They are doing all of that right now. We already know they worked out Jackson Dart earlier on in this process, and this week have 3 big-time in-person private workouts to go through of some big-time quarterbacks. Shedeur Sanders, the quarterback at Colorado, he, of course, is going to get a workout from the New York Giants. Privately, you mentioned that as well. Jalen Milroe from Alabama. Probably not an option at 3, but might be an option either late in the first round if the Giants trade up or early in the second round if they stay put, doing their homework on him. And then Tyler Shook, a name that it sounds to me like is rising a little bit now, at least in the eye of the public. Teams have already known what kind of a player he was, but at least publicly it's becoming clear that he is considered to be among the top quarterbacks. He is getting a private workout from the New York Giants. And well, not sure that's at 3, but again, maybe that second round pick. Giants are doing a full canvas of the quarterbacks to make sure they're as absolutely informed as possible before they make the number 3 overall selection. If they take their franchise guy at 3, then all this will be worth it. If they take him later, same thing. Giants are making sure they're prepared.
Indeed, and there are a lot of options with this class and a wide variety of opinions on where those options will land. Thank you very much, Ian Rappaport, there giving us the latest on the Giants quarterback visits. And here's a look at where we're projecting the Giants to go with our NFL.com mock drafts at number 3 overall. Look, DJ's still up there with Shedeur Sanders. We'll see where he goes with his final mock coming up for you here on NFL Network during draft week. But everybody else, it's either Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter, of course, depending on what the Browns do at number 2. And so with that, as promised, we welcome Mark Ross and Charles Davis back here with us. And Mark, I want to start with you here because this does feel like a year where there is just as much intrigue about quarterbacks that are going to be taken outside of the first round as there maybe is with those QBs that will fall within the first 32 picks. And with that in mind, looking at the Giants here, do you feel like they may be better suited in this draft class to take a quarterback, let's say, in the second round with that second pick as opposed to number 3 overall?
Well, first off, Rhett, you mentioned the intrigue later on. That's because there's not a lot of top-end talent, not a lot of players right there. And specifically for the Giants, we talked about these workouts. If they're at this point and using private workouts to determine if one of these players is their franchise guy, then they've already missed the evaluation. They should already know this. So this might be a lot of smoke and mirrors. And for the Giants, Joe Schoen talked about their quarterback room. You really always are looking at your quarterback situation in comparison to the other teams. And let's just start in their division. With Jameis Winston and Russell Wilson, they're really sitting fourth right now. And now you have to look at the draft and say, is anyone at 3 worthy of being better than Dak and Jaden and Jalen here in our own division? Okay, if not, later on, is that player available to us in the draft that can upgrade us? So that's really what you're looking at it for the Giants is, okay, the value versus where the need is. And also, Charles, if the owner says no matter who you take, you have some time to work with them, or you're just really drafting one of these quarterbacks for the next staff.
Mark, do you ask the owner, is that going to be put in writing? Do you ask him that, or do you just accept it and go with it? Because those are glorious words, right? If you are a front office person and they tell you no matter who you draft, you have additional time, it may change what your focus is. But to me, it's very simple. If you have the quarterback there that you like at 3, you take that quarterback. And as Mark said, they should already know. The rest of this, you maybe just do an extra intel for down the road in case a guy's a free agent later, you want to make a trade. Bottom line is, if you like him at 3, you take him. If not, they have the options. We know how the draft's going to play out, it appears. Cam Ward 1. Do you get Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter 2? And the other one likely goes to the Giants at 3. So that's what Joe Schoen's talking about, is having those types of options. But if you like a guy, you go ahead and take him, because if not, and you take a regular player, you come back in the second round, Tyler Shuck could still be there. Jalen Milroe could still be there. Do you like Quinn Ewers out of Texas? The second round feels like that's where the quarterback mix comes in. And who knows, maybe even Jackson Dart's available in the second round.
Ooh, Jackson Dart, way to squeeze him in there. CD, you were one of the first to put him in at the top 3. Doesn't appear that that's going to happen. Yeah. But I think when it comes to the quarterback, it's really important that the quarterback needs to go where his talent puts him there. So if the quarterback is graded as a top 5 talent, then you take him within the top 5. If he's not that, then you have to fall back and take someone that's more appropriate. But here's the trick. If you fall out of the first round and it takes a quarterback, you're unlikely to find a quarterback that is going to change the game. Since 2015, there have only been 4 quarterbacks taken outside the first round that have earned Pro Bowl honors. And when we look at the second round, it's only one, and that's Jalen Hurts. So if you don't like the quarterback class where you can take him in the top 5, you're better to punt and wait and get somebody else that can help you at another position, because it's unlikely that someone drafted outside the first round is going to be a difference maker that brings you closer to your division rivals at that position.
Yeah, look, and I think if you're the Giants, you want to show that competitive progress here in 2025. But, if you are around, you want to make sure you're in a good spot to stay around beyond this year as well. So you got to plan for the long term as well. Tough position to be in, but that's where we sit. So let's take a look now at where Bucky stands with his top 5 quarterbacks. As I mentioned, that those new top 5 positional rankings are out, and there is some movement, but not at the top in this quarterback class. You still, Bucky, have Shedeur Sanders from Colorado up there at number 1 with Cam Ward, the presumptive number 1 overall pick in this year's draft, to the Tennessee Titans there at 2, with Jackson Dart and Jalen Milroe, who is attending the 2025 NFL Draft in Green Bay. They're at 4 with Kyle McCord out of Syracuse at 5. And so with that, you didn't let the process sway you. You stayed, Bucky, the way that you had it from the get-go. Shedeur at 1, Cam at 2.
Yeah, sometimes being stubborn can get you in trouble, and we'll see what it looks like down the road. But this is what I've always been taught when it comes to quarterbacks. They talk about accuracy, they talk about decision-making, and toughness. And when I look at the tape, Shedeur Sanders exhibits all of those qualities in spades. When we talk about playing the position like it's traditionally been played, it's about dealing from the pocket and delivering strikes. Time after time after time, when I look at Shedeur Sanders, he plays the game in a traditional sense that many quarterback coaches and offensive coordinators would celebrate. Under pressure, he continues to deliver the ball in the strike zone. I've talked about Shedeur Sanders playing it very similar to the way that I used to look at Greg Maddux pitch for the Braves for a long time. He paints the corners, he hits the strike zone. He doesn't necessarily throw a heater, but what he does, he delivers it right to the catcher's mitt, right on the outside of the strike zone. That is what Shedeur Sanders does. Now, Doesn't mean that he's going to be the first one to come off the board. Doesn't even mean that he may be a first-round pick. But when we're projecting how quarterbacks are going to play, we're saying in the league, Shedeur Sanders is going to play at a high level because he has toughness, he has accuracy, he makes good decisions.
I love that breakdown, and I love those characteristics because that's what you're looking for in a starting quarterback. And certainly some intrigue as to where Shedeur Sanders comes off the board once we get to Green Bay. Here's a look at your top 5 running backs here, Bucky. And look, pretty status quo on this board here that you're seeing with Ashton Jeanty at the top. Your Tar Heel there, Marion Hampton at number 2. Feel like those two guys are almost locks to go in the first round here at this point, especially Jeanty. But then, down at number 5, Cam Skattebo from Arizona State entering the chat. And that's where I want to bring Mark. I want to bring Charles back here, but I want to get to you first here on Bucky, on Cam, Bucky. And that is, where do you feel like a player like that would really fit? Where would his skill set really be used well in the league?
Okay, well, he has a little glitz and glam to his game. I know it's physical and all that, but I want to put him in Dallas. I want to put him in the Cowboys, not in the first round, second, third round, somewhere in there. I want him to play for Brian Schottenheimer because I know Brian Schottenheimer is going to follow his dad's ethos, Marty Schottenheimer. They're going to play Marty ball. They're going to run the football. They're going to run it in between the tackles, and you have to have a big back that has toughness, that has the physicality to handle the workload. When I look at Skattebo, this is someone that first did it at Sacramento State, Big Sky Player of the Year, goes to Arizona State, dominates. And when you look at the pieces around him, he didn't have the supporting cast that others had. That means he had to put on the hard head and the lunch pail, had to make it happen. So for me, I want to put him in Dallas so he can be that workhorse runner that they desperately needed since Ezekiel Elliott fell off the map.
Yeah, that's a show me the tape player right there. Not a let's look at the measurables and the athletic profile on Cam Skattebo because he gets it done on the field. All right, Mark Ross, I want to come to you here as well and talk about a fit and maybe a range as to where we might see Cam Skattebo ultimately come off the board.
Well, this one was easy for me. Rhett, you and I were gifted receivers, in college. Charles and Bucky were these tough defensive players. I just want to propose this scenario. You got to deal with King Henry, the Baltimore Ravens, for the first few series of the game. You think you get a break. And now you put Cam Skattebo in the game, coming at you full speed ahead,
wrecking ball,
running right through your face nonstop. And then you got to deal with the King again, and back comes Skattebo. So I think this Baltimore Ravens fit for Skattebo, the most physical running team in the NFL with King Henry. And now you put Skattebo in there, I think would just be a defensive nightmare as far as trying to tackle this group. And then I think the run really is going to go in the second or third round for the running backs. And I think teams are going to have these guys mixed up all kinds of different ways. But I think Skattebo fits right in there, maybe bottom of the second, to the third round for the Baltimore Ravens there, bringing even more physicality.
Charles, Mark, you're trying to scare all of us, aren't you? and there's no question about it. But before I even get into Skattebo, I just want everyone to understand this when Bucky Brooks talks about quarterbacks. I want everybody to go back over the last 3, 4, 5 years and see how he ranked the quarterbacks coming off the board and see how well he has done, because he had a lot of hits in there that other people did not have, including a certain quarterback in Houston now that he had ahead of Bryce Young. That's right. Just one of them. There are plenty of others. So make sure you understand that. Bucky knows quarterbacks. Now, the running back, second to third round, I think Mark is right on with Skattebo. We don't care about the stopwatch. Baltimore is frightening. But how about let's send him to Los Angeles Chargers with Jim Harbaugh, who loves football players. You think he wouldn't find use for Cam Skattebo? You think he doesn't want to run the football even more effectively than he did last year when he brought in J.K. Dobbins? He wants to bring Skattebo in, run the heck out of it, and give Justin Herbert better options throwing the football downfield. Besides, guys, let's face it, we all love to say, Cam Skattebo.
I mean, look, it rolls off the tongue. I will give you that for sure. And it's like Charles is reading right here from my cards, because when we come back here on Path to the Draft, we're going to talk about Bryce Young and his team, the Carolina Panthers. Yeah, it was a rocky start in 2024, but Bryce sure did end up with a firm grip on Carolina's starting quarterback job. So how will the Panthers build around him? Well, GM may have given us a hint. That's next here on Path to the Draft.
Path to the Draft is presented by Harbor Freight. Whatever you do, do it for less at Harbor Freight.
The NFL Draft presented by Bud Light is coming to Green Bay, and it's your chance to witness the future of the game for free. Experience the history of Lambeau Field, see the Vince Lombardi Trophy and Super Bowl rings, and meet NFL players and legends. The NFL Draft starts April 24th in Green Bay. Register for free entry at NFL.com/draft access today. Of course, 8 days until the draft, and you know the Panthers hold the 8th overall pick. They are counting down the days with their $100 million man, cornerback J.C. Horn. So what will GM Dan Morgan do with that top 10 selection? Well, he told the media yesterday he is absolutely open for business.
I think we're definitely open to trading back and acquiring more picks. I think we're going to be open to all possibilities, let's put it that way.
When the Saints news came out Friday, did that kind of cause a little uptick in traffic on your phone? I mean, were more people interested in talking once that's out there?
No, I don't think yet. I think it's still a little early for that. I think maybe down the line I'll expect it a little more, but right now things are quiet.
All right, Red Lewis back here with Bucky Brooks, Charles Davis, and Mark Ross. And, I think obviously the Saints quarterback situation with the Derek Carr uncertainty has kind of thrust, them even further into the quarterback discussion there. And you heard the question to Dan Morgan, Charles Davis there. Have you been getting more calls now of teams that may want a quarterback that are trying to get ahead of the Saints if the impetus is on New Orleans to take one a bit more with Derek Carr's injury? So do you feel like that is a trade spot if you were one of those teams that's maybe outside of that top 10 looking to get one of these top 3 QBs?
I think it has to be, and I think it's because of what we've analyzed ad nauseum leading up to the draft. Who are the quarterback needy teams? How needy are they? And where are the spots, right? The pressure points in terms of where these quarterbacks could come off the board. Because 9 in New Orleans was a discussion point, and now it's become a major shouting point since the injury to Derek Carr. So guess what? Carolina's at 8. Dan Morgan, he's not even smiling, but inside it's like, please dial my phone. Because he's got a roster he has to continue to make better. It's got places all over it that could use upgrades. I think he'd love to move back, get extra picks, and be able to get someone else. I just don't know who can come up there and who would come up there to get ahead of him, to get ahead of New Orleans and take that quarterback.
Charles, you make a fantastic point. And first off, the calling around the different teams is like a tradition unlike any other before the draft, where you'll call your coworkers and other teams and you just laugh like, I know you want to trade up or you want to trade back. But it's something you have to do, and all teams are willing to do it. But it's just basic supply and demand with Dan Morgan and where they're sitting right now, where the supply of quarterbacks or top-end quarterbacks really is not there. So therefore, the demand to go up to get them will not be there either. And the supply, a number of teams that need a quarterback really isn't there. You have to look at going all the way down to Pittsburgh at 21 before you really find a team like, yep, they'll be desperate enough to trade. And I just think that's just way too far to go for Pittsburgh to go from 21 to get into the top 10 to get a quarterback. So I can't foresee that happening. Now, if a quarterback gets past Dan Morgan there, sorry, Dan, now Pittsburgh may want to try to move up just in case. But I just don't see the supply and to warrant the demand for a team making a desperate trade.
And Bucky, part of that is this year's quarterback class, right? It's not like, when the Chiefs moved up, 15 spots to get a Patrick Mahomes in that class, right? That's part of the calculus.
It is part of the calculus. And what Mark and CD are alluding to is no one values the quarterbacks in that top 10 range. We are seeing that Cam Ward may be the only quarterback that carries that grade around the league on most boards. And so if you don't have a quarterback that is valued as a top 10 player, you don't move up to do that, because now everything is out of whack and the expectation and the compensation doesn't match what the performance and the production is going to be. This tells me, when Dan Morton talks about his phone being quiet, the league is letting us know what they feel about the quarterback class, and it's beginning to sound and feel eerily similar to what it was when Kenny Pickett and that class came out, where there was a lot of conversation but not a lot of action when it came down to it.
Yeah, and look, I think the quarterbacks always generate pivotal points in this draft, right? And our buddy Chad Ryder on NFL.com has penned his pivotal picks column. See how many more P's I can throw in here for us. And as identified, look, a couple of teams, and look, the Giants are one of them because of that quarterback quotient there. Patriots at 4 as a pivotal spot there in round 1 that could alter the way things go beyond their pick? And then you look at the Jets at 7. You look at the Dolphins at 13 is another one. And then the Vikings at 24, kicking off the final few selections of the first round. And so when you look, Charles, outside of the top 10, is there a team to you that has maybe the most intriguing or important decision to make ahead of them here?
See, I thought about Houston, about them trying to get another receiver perhaps. And if they didn't, would someone try and get up ahead of the Rams? But I really settled in on 14, and that's Indianapolis. And I'm not quite sure what Chad had in his article with the Jets at 7, but I'm wondering if he was thinking about the tight end Tyler Warren at 7 being pivotal. Because I think that if he gets through that and he's at 14, let's be honest, I think we've all tried to give Indianapolis a big-time tight end over the last 2, 3, 4 seasons, and Tyler Warren would be that guy. And if somehow Indianapolis didn't take him and opted for a corner instead, perhaps, wow, could that set off a frenzy of people wanting to get Tyler Warren? Because remember, people didn't go up and get Brock Bowers last year. And as we found out, maybe a few of them should have.
Oh, absolutely. Brock Bowers is a great pick for the Raiders, and he was someone that I thought many teams would move up for. I'm looking at the next pick after the Colts pick, the Atlanta Falcons. The Atlanta Falcons have been desperately trying to fill this pass rusher need, and they've been unable to do so. And it doesn't matter whether they've had a top 10 pick, a later round pick, whatever. They cannot find the pass rusher. I want to see what Raheem Morris and Terry Fontenot are able to do to really upgrade a position of need on a defense that has to play much better for this team to compete and compete at a high level. So can they find their guy by sitting and picking? Do they move up a little bit to get a guy? Can they move back and still get a guy? Regardless, all eyes are on the Dirty Birds. Can they find someone that can get after the passer after so many years of not being able to do so?
Well, I'm going to go with the aforementioned Pittsburgh Steelers for my team outside the top 10. Just because of the quarterback intrigue, as we talked about. Look, Mason Rudolph is their starting quarterback right now. Even if they signed Aaron Rodgers, I don't think that's an upgrade over what they had with Russell Wilson and Justin Fields last year. So you have to be sitting there with your Omar Khan and Mike Tomlin and saying, do any of these quarterbacks move the needle for us and get us better than Mason Rudolph? And, of course, the links with Shedeur. I had the visit there to Pittsburgh, talked about Mike Tomlin reminding him of his dad. So that might be a fit where if Shedeur gets out of the top 10, okay, now we have to do something. If Charles Davis's man, Jackson Dart, gets out of 3 there from the Giants, will they start moving up to get him or think, you know what, we can wait? Since there isn't a lot of demand, we can wait right here at 21 and get him there. So I think by far, because of the quarterback intrigue and the Steelers not having someone right there to say, we can go compete for the playoffs, they are the most intriguing team.
Yeah, and that's a fun part to think about, too. It's like, all right, what does the package look like if, we want to move with the Niners at 11, right? With the Dolphins at 13, and then you've got those packages ready to go if, in fact, that does end up being the case with one of those quarterbacks available outside of the top 10. Great work there. Speaking of Jackson Dart, though, he is one of 2 players who has actually dropped out of their previously announced attendance in Green Bay on draft night. He, along with Georgia's Michael Williams, no longer attending the draft in Green Bay. Instead, Kentucky cornerback Maxwell Hairston will walk the red carpet and be in the green room next Thursday night. And still to come, we've talked about the talent and the depth of this tight end class. Just talking about it there with Charles and the Colts there at 14. Could we even get more first-rounders from that position than expected? Maybe more than 2. We'll give you a name to watch at tight end and beyond. That's next here on Path to the Draft, presented by Harbor Freight. Hey, Mock Draft Live, the finale coming up here as our experts deliver their latest draft projections. You can find out where the next wave of stars will land. The season finale this year of Mock Draft Live coming up next Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern, only on NFL Network. Back here on Path to the Draft here, presented by Harbor Freight. Time now for Who to Watch, presented by Harbor Freight. Rhett Lewis, Bucky Brooks, Mark Ross, and Charles Davis back here with us. And I love this part of it because it always feels like the last 7 to 8 picks in the first round can be real wild cards. Guys we haven't necessarily talked about in that range, but end up getting up there based off the teams that are picking them, having pretty good rosters, being in the playoffs the year before. So, Charles, when you think about that, who's a player that you think could sneak into that back end of the first round?
Well, it's someone who has snuck into our conversation in the last week and a half or so. And that's Benjamin Morrison, the corner out of Notre Dame, because I think if he's not hurt, if he doesn't have the hip issue, we're talking about him a lot more on the upper end of the starting corners coming out of this draft, right? We're talking about it more with Will Johnson and Jahdae Barron and that crew. I think he's top shelf. I think he's elite in everything that he does. The word I wrote down was comfortable when I watched him in everything he does. Extremely comfortable, gets around the football, takes it away from people, and oh, by the way, he'll tackle you as well.
Mark, you got one for us?
Yep, I'm going to go with who I think is the most underrated player in the draft, and that's Ohio State defensive end JT Tuimoloau. I'm just going to call him JTT, just like I called JPP, my man we drafted back with the Giants back in the day. And there's a lot of question marks for me as far as the edge group. But this guy, I had no questions when I watched his tape. He is rugged. He is physical. He has a pass rush bag. He always shows up. When I watch tape, I always look at players against the best competition. And in the 4-game playoff stretch that Ohio State had, he had 6.5 sacks and 11 tackles for loss. So he brought his game up and elevated his game to another level against the best competition when it mattered most. I think this guy's going to be a really good NFL player.
Yeah, JT was excellent for the Buckeyes this year opposite Jack Sawyer. Look, I don't know that we necessarily talk about off-ball linebackers, like true inside linebackers, as guys that are first-round type of values. We saw it with Jack Campbell a couple years ago with the Detroit Lions. I think, though, UCLA's Carson Schlesinger could fit in that role. This is a guy who didn't enter the starting lineup at off-ball backer for UCLA until week 3. Played 10 games as the starting linebacker for UCLA and ended up a Butkus Award finalist as one of the best backers in all of college football. He is one of the most instinctual players at any position in this draft class. He has a phenomenal nose for the football, makes big plays all over the field. He is that new breed of off-ball linebacker that is just a playmaker all over the place, whether it's in coverage, blitzing, on those run-throughs in the run game, and just cleaning up tackles left and right. I really like Carson Schlesinger as a potential guy at the end of the first round there, Bucky.
Hey, Red, I'm a brand name guy, so I love guys that come from a family business, a business of playing ball. And so Mason Taylor is the guy for me. When your bloodlines include your dad, Jason Taylor, Hall of Famer, your uncle, Zach Thomas, Hall of Famer, I am more likely to believe that you're going to be on the track to be a dominant player in the National Football League. When I look at Mason Taylor on tape, catches the ball well, is really complete as a tight end. Not only running routes, catching balls, blocking on the edges, he's just solid. And the biggest compliment a scout can write in his notes, he's a pro. When I look at Mason Taylor, he is a pro in every sense of the word, which is why I would not be surprised to see him sneaking to the bottom of the first round as a wide tight end.
Yeah, remember Howie Roseman, general manager of the Eagles, kind of got some questions about Dallas Goedert's future there in Philly. Maybe that's an interesting spot there at 32 if they hang on to that pick. All right, tomorrow on NFL.com, our buddy Tom Pelissero of the NFL Network Insiders will post his list of potential surprises in round 1, so keep an eye out for that one coming up for you. In the meantime, on Friday's edition of 40s and Free Agents with our buddy Daniel Jeremiah and Greg Rosenthal, they kind of discussed some sleepers to keep an eye on at the end of the first round, especially when the Commanders go on the clock.
To me, I looked at 2 players that I love for them on the offensive side of the ball. Surprise, surprise, TreVeyon Henderson. The fact that I've mentioned him with darn near all these playoff teams, I'm convinced of the fact this guy's going to go much higher than you think because he complements so many of these rosters, but he would be a great fit there. Think of like a young, fresh-legged Austin Eckler, what he was with the Chargers. You get some of that there with TreVeyon Henderson. And then the other name that I wrote down was, okay, think about how they use Ertz and what Ertz has done and been that security blanket there for Jayden Daniels. Now, Ertz is not young. You know, how much longer is he going to play? Mason Taylor, to me, his comp was Zach Ertz, someone who's smart, dependable. They're going to throw all those little underneath routes that he likes to throw, all those RPOs and different things. Mason Taylor will catch a zillion balls and play with Jayden Daniels for a long time. By the way, where did Mason Taylor go to college, Greg?
There you go, LSU.
He went. Yeah, where'd Jayden Daniels go to college?
Okay. So now I'm hearing this twice where you're throwing out Mason Taylor as a possible first-round pick. That's something you see as a possibility now?
I love him. He's going to be one of my top 32 players, so...
There you go, worthy of a first-round pick with that distinction. Mason Taylor. Round 1 might be a surprise to some, but certainly has the skills and the bloodlines to be an absolute star in this league. Here now, Mason Taylor, in his own words, in another edition of First Draft.
Toss tosses it towards the end zone, grabbing it, Mason Taylor, touchdown, Mighty Tigers!
Throwing towards Taylor over the shoulder, he grabs it, and it is a touchdown!
Mason Taylor, tight end, LSU. I have a Hall of Fame dad. His name's Jason Taylor. And so I think my first football memory, it was probably one of my dad's games when he was playing for the Dolphins.
Jason Taylor knocks him down. Here they come. Jason, go!
He's inspired me tremendously growing up, just seeing him as my role model. He's a really great football player, but an even better person. Getting to see what he accomplished and he accomplishes dreams and goals, it just motivates me to do the same. My uncle's name is Zach Thomas, played for the Dolphins as well, and he's in the Hall of Fame as a linebacker.
What a pop by Zach Thomas.
We talk about football so much in my family. It's a way of life, but also being a better person outside of football is what we pride ourselves on as Taylors.
Daniels looking to throw, gets it near side. Mason Taylor, touchdown!
Taylor breaking tackles, and he hits Baker.
My style is just being that complete tight end, being that guy that can be reliable in the pass game and in the run game as well. I think also showing up in clutch moments when there's pressure and, you know, the game's on the line, being that guy that can be consistent and reliable is something I try to do every single day.
Snap to Daniels, throw to the right, caught, Mason Taylor, Tigers win, Tigers win, hey now!
Draft night is going to be a crazy night for me with my uncle and my dad, what they did in the NFL and them going through the same process. It's definitely a blessing, and just having my friends and family there and kind of celebrating it together is definitely going to be emotional and just a great time. But, you know, that's just the first step into a big process in NFL, and I'm ready to get to work.
All right, how about that photo right there from the Senior Bowl in Mobile? And great news, tomorrow, Mason and Jason Taylor will join us live here on Path to the Draft, talking about Mason's draft prep and his football journey. You don't want to miss that one. That's tomorrow night, 6 Eastern, right here on NFL Network. And speaking of tomorrow's content, our ESPN crossover event continues tomorrow. Rich Eisen is joining First Take on ESPN at 10 a.m. Eastern, and ESPN's Field Yates will be right here with us on Path to the Draft. All right, when we return, the Bears have been hard at work overhauling their roster in Ben Johnson's first season, now leading that team. Pair of young offensive stars, fully revamped offensive line. How does Chicago get their team just right for 2025? Bucky playing some multiple choice for Chicago. That's next on Path.
With the first pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, the Chicago Bears select Caleb Williams, quarterback of the Californians.
Williams stood right in and delivers it to Washington. Caleb Williams is absolutely ludicrous.
With the ninth pick, the Bears select Rome Odunze, wide receiver, Washington.
Rome Odunze, wide open. Odunze is that dude.
Well, we've been cooking up something special here on Path to the Draft. It's Bucky Brooks and the 3 new Bears. All right, Buck, we're going to give you a chance to make some picks with the Bears' first 3 picks here. Try to give Caleb Williams, give Ben Johnson a little more to try to compete in that NFC North. We're going to start at pick number 10 overall in the first round. Got some offensive linemen up there, running back to help Caleb a little bit. What do you got for us?
Okay, so I love reading a bedtime story. And in this division, you got to have some toughness if we're going to end. So let's go Kelvin Banks Jr., the offensive tackle from Texas. I know we put some resources into fixing that offensive line, but I want to make sure that Caleb Williams is protected, because when he's protected, he has an opportunity to be a really good player. Kelvin Banks, dancing bear on the edge, great footwork, great feet, has the balance and body control that you love on the perimeter. I like him. I want to put him in that lineup to make sure that my big bear is protected. That's the quarterback.
Could be 4 new starters along the offensive line if you think about all the free agent acquisitions and the trades that were made to help protect Caleb there with the selection of Kelvin Banks added in. Let's move to pick number 39, which is one of the final pieces of the trade with the Panthers that allowed them to go to number 1 to select Bryce Young. I love this one here with Trey Harris as another receiver. You've got a stud edge rusher here in Landon Jackson. Where are you going?
Oh, look, so I want to make sure that Ben Johnson is comfortable. So we gave him his Penei Sewell type player in the offensive line.
That.
So now let's get a running back.
Oh, there's your running back.
Because I want to make sure that we have a tandem, a duo in the backfield that's able to really sledgehammer defenses. And in Judkins, we're talking about a big physical runner, a guy that is terrific in a gap scheme, meaning he's running the downhill power, the JT counter, all of those things that you want to see. And so having the big back to complement Swift, now we can go a little force, a little finesse, but we can do all the fun stuff that Ben Johnson wants to do on offense.
Going to hear from Quinshon Judkins right here on Path to the Draft coming up on Monday along with Ashton Jeanty. So nice opportunity to get more familiar with the running back class. And then as the Bears, only team with 3 picks in the top 50 selections in Green Bay, pick number 41. They're also in the second round. Some good options here. We've got our running back. We've got our offensive line. Is it time to go defense here?
It has to go defense. You can't be the monster of the midway without a defensive player. Darius Alexander from Toledo. Big, physical player, great hand skills. Yeah. And you can see his dominance time and time again as he dominates the competition. We saw him have an opportunity to go up Senior Bowl, flash some stuff. But I just like seeing a guy that is big, fast, physical, quick hands, has the pass rush ability on the interior, but also can stop the run. We talk about the Bears being the Bears. It starts on defense, then the offense. Darius Alexander can be a centerpiece on a new and improved defense under Dennis Allen.
Yeah, I like that one a lot right there, Darius Alexander. Boy, they had some studs at Toledo now. Quinyon Mitchell last year,
like a rocket.
First-round pick.
Yeah.
Let's go for the Chicago Bears. Those picks were just right.
Aren't you funny? Aren't you just funny?
All right. We've got more to come here for you. More bedtime stories for Buck. Our guys think Abdul Carter is one of the best. Cam Ward, Travis Hunter, 3 of the cleanest prospects altogether in the draft. But forget safe picks. Who are our favorite players to watch on tape? We're going to take you inside the film room when Path rolls on. Get more of the NFL with NFL Plus. Follow the journey of future NFL stars and stay connected throughout the offseason with coverage of the NFL Draft and more. It's all in one place, and you can subscribe today at plus.nfl.com. Terms and conditions apply. All right, it's been one of the themes of our show here today. Bucky Brooks has his latest top 5 positional rankings out, 3.0, the final one. Taking a look at your notable risers. You were listening to me, huh? On Swessinger? Look, it goes up from 5 to 3. The disrespect.
I listen.
Initially. No, I'm messing.
I listen.
I'm messing. How about Landon Jackson, Derek Harmon also moving up into that 3 hole along with Benjamin Morrison, who we also identified as a guy who could sneak into the back end of the first round. So those are some guys that Bucky has been studying, and film study is the topic of discussion now as we welcome Charles Davis and Mark Ross back here with us. Bucky, who's a guy look, you look at all these guys, but who's one you just, when you turn it on, you love watching this guy play ball?
I am obsessed with pass rushers, having played with Derek Thomas, Bruce Smith, and Reggie White. And a guy that's fast, he tickles my fancy. Mike Green from Marshall, leading sack artist in college football. You see him do it off the edge, explosive and loose. You just see the first step quickness, snap count anticipation. He can turn speed into power, strong hands, relentless in his approach. And I love when he had an opportunity to step up in competition. He took his game up a notch. To me, he exhibits all the traits that you look for in a dominant pass rusher at the next level.
Bucky, I was lucky enough to play with Reggie White in college, so I co-sign on what you're saying. He makes all of us in the back look like we actually have talent because the ball never comes out. Now, the guy that I've enjoyed watching on this process, Donovan Jackson, the offensive guard from Ohio State. You guys remember the combine when he really gutted it out. There was something not quite right, and he kept fighting. Well, you see all of that and more on tape. Good footwork, excellent punch. Had to kick out the left tackle this year with injury to Josh Simmons. Had to deal with Abdul Carter in his first start and acquitted himself quite well overall. But this is where you really like him. Look at his run game power. He moves a person from point A to point B against their will as well as anyone in the interior line in this draft. He's got some Trey Smith qualities to him, the guard with Kansas City. I'm crazy about Donovan Jackson.
I got to go with Texas do-it-all secondary man, Jahdae Barron, because I had seen the stuff I saw him do on film I had never seen before in a defensive back. When I saw him line up, they play him everywhere, but when I saw him line up in the A-gap and start calling out blitzes and either blitz or drop, I had absolutely never seen that in a corner before. He is electric. His football instincts are off the charts. He's quick. He's fast. Anywhere he goes, for any team, they can use him in a variety of different ways, much like they did at Texas. It's not as if he does some things okay and you're moving him around. He does everything at a high level, and I just love watching him no matter which game I put on.
I love that. I love those guys that really kind of make us want to turn that tape on, watch another game, watch another rep, because they do it the right way on the field. Still to come here on Path to the Draft. Will Howard helped lead the Ohio State Buckeyes to the national title this year. Coming up next, you're going to hear how he plans to lead your favorite franchise to a Super Bowl next. All right, back here on Path to the Draft, presented by Harbor Freight, where quarterback intrigue continues to build, and count Ohio State's Will Howard as part of that equation. His collegiate career ended with a national title, and while working his pre-draft training and pre-draft prep, he made a strong case for not overlooking his skill set.
What makes you feel like we should draft you? Why Will Howard?
I love you asked that, man. I feel like my whole career I've been overlooked. I didn't have an offer from Pitt. I didn't have an offer from Syracuse. I didn't have an offer from Boston College. I want to prove those people wrong. I hope Penn State looks back and say, damn, we've missed out on Will Howard. You know, when I get to the NFL, I don't want you guys to miss out on me, because every single team that picks a quarterback in front of me, I'm going to make it my mission to make sure that they regret not picking me.
Love the passion, the enthusiasm. Good job.
Yep. Thank you,
Good
guys.
job.
Draft me.
Yes.
There you go.
Draft me or you'll regret it.
All right, no regrets here, because we're pounding the dang table for some prospects that deserve more attention. I like Will Howard's mindset there as he gets into the interview room with some of these teams. Red Lewis, Bucky Brooks, Mark Ross, Charles Davis back here with you. CD, you got a player that you want to pound the table for that we haven't talked about quite enough yet?
Yeah, and very quickly, Will Howard, it's a type of statement that either burnishes your legend later or it's the one you'll regret if things don't work out. I like his confidence. But for me, it's Charles Grant, the offensive tackle from William & Mary. That may be some Virginia plotting in here, but he wears the 60. He moves really well. He's going to need a little bit of work, but he looks a lot like DeBrickashaw Ferguson physically coming out. He's not him, don't get me wrong, but I like him a lot. Make him my left tackle for 10 years when I get him ready to go.
Look, nice comparison, nice pull with the DeBrickashaw Ferguson take. How about Jalen Royers, wide receiver from Utah State? 2 seasons ago, this dude lit it up. Had over 1,000 yards, had 15 touchdowns. He can dazzle on the perimeter when he has the ball in his hands. 6 foot, 200 pounds, ran 4.49. He is intriguing because he can play inside, outside. He can put the ball in the paint. Nice chain mover. Good addition to an offense as a wide receiver 2 or 3.
Hey, look, in our draft rooms, guys didn't physically pound the table. I just say, hey, scouts, speak with conviction on your guys. And my guy is the big monster, Alfred Collins there, 6'6", 332 pounds, 34 5/8 arms, and 10-inch hands. And unlike some big guys, he plays big. You know exactly what you're getting, a junkyard dog in there to just mess everything up, hold the point, let everybody else get the sacks and the glory. He'll do all the dirty work inside for you. You can't miss with a tough, huge physical player like Alfred Collins.
Yeah, I love that one there as well. Let me give you another one on the wide receiver front. That's Alec Manor from Stanford. Oh, Canada. Yes, from north of the border, and one of the most accomplished Canadian-born prospects here in this class. I think he's one of those guys that could hear his name called early on in the second round, and we just haven't heard from him as enough. All right, big day coming up tomorrow. Field Yates, Mason Taylor, ton of